Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I want to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. We are going to be talking about Contact Report 150 and also this concept called the creation. Billy's third extraterrestrial teacher was a woman named Semyase. Starting in about 1975, she would land her beam ship during the day near Hinterschmidruti and step out and walk over to Billy, and they would sit down under a tree. And she would tell Billy some of the most amazing things. She would speak in very poetic words. One thing she said was, love and wisdom belong together because the creation and its laws are love and wisdom at the same time. She said, when there is wisdom and knowledge, there is love and cognition. And when there is cognition and love, there is the creation. Growth within love and wisdom teach the human to recognize creation. Now, she would go on to explain that our universe was built by, created by a superintelligence, a universal consciousness that's really a neutral positive entity that builds universes as a part of its own evolution. And the physical universe is the material manifestation of the wisdom of the creation. She told Billy that every human has within them a spirit that does not sleep, even during his deepest sleep, that records all of his thoughts and his actions, and it will tell you if your thinking is right or wrong if you've learned to listen to it. She said that this spirit is really the seat of the infinite, but that it takes sound logic and freedom from unreal teaching to open up that power contained within the human spirit. See, the human spirit is a tiny bit of energy located in our midbrains in an area called the superior colliculus. And the superior colliculus controls things like eyesight. And that little bit of energy, no bigger than the end of a needle, sends out energy throughout our whole body and animates every cell. Semjase said that those who are rich in spirit will become an instrument through which the creation reveals the spiritual realms. Now, the universal consciousness and the creation are roughly synonymous, but there's really two separate concepts here. There's our physical universe, which if you could step away from, if you could get far enough away and look at it, you would see that it looks roughly egg-shaped. And it's made up of 7 concentric layers that counter-rotate against each other. And if you singled out the 4th layer and could zoom into that, you would be in what's called the material belt. And in the material belt is where all the material in the universe resides. All of the galaxies, all of the stars, the entire physical universe. But the universal consciousness is really the controlling factor behind our entire universe. Our universe is a rather immature universe. It's at the first stage of its evolution. And a universe goes through what they call a great time, which is a period of expansion that lasts about 110 trillion years, something to that effect, 115 trillion years, something like that, and then a contraction phase. I think the whole great time, the expansion and the contraction, is about 316 trillion years. And then the universe changes form up to the next higher level of universe. This process repeats 10 to the 49th power times. And that's the evolution of the physical universe. Now, human spirits are created to help the universe in its evolution. The universal consciousness creates human spirits as a part of its own evolution. Now, when we die, that your human spirit comes out of your body and it goes into this fine matter world, this spiritual realm that exists here with our planet in a different dimension. And your past life memories are stored in the universal storage banks, and the universal consciousness starts to prepare you for your next physical life. And then the regular time on Earth is about 152 years before you go back into the physical. And then 21 days after the sperm fertilizes the egg, the universal consciousness takes your human spirit, places it back into the body of a child. The comprehensive consciousness block comes down and ensures that the child gets a new personality. And the previous life memories go into the subconscious of that child. And then as that child grows up again, it will receive inspiration from its previous lives, and it will get impulses from the storage banks. And that's the way that wisdom builds on top of wisdom through each lifetime. Typically, we don't remember specific things from previous lives, although sometimes that does happen. I think far, far later in our evolution, we start to recall more. I don't know that for a fact, but I think that's the case. So we go through this period of reincarnation, death, reincarnation, death, reincarnation, just the way the sun rises and the sun sets, and the way we have spring and fall, spring and fall. It's a natural cycle. And in the Goblet of Truth is this wonderful passage that I love to quote. It's called What the Truth Knows to Say. And it explains the physical creation very well. It says, rivers, lakes, stones, air, water, bushes, trees, everything that crawls and flies on the earth is a life form with a spirit form. And these spirit forms are on a journey through time which involves many, many lifetimes. And that death is just the passage to rebirth into the world of pure spirit. And many of these creatures are connected by psychic swinging waves, and they communicate with one another, and they are aware of one another. So if you go into the forest, you can hear the birds sing, the crickets chirp, the frogs and the peepers, as these creatures communicate with one another, because they're all part of an indissoluble web of life. And it's a tightly woven web. If you could think of interlacing fibers, that's probably a good analogy for understanding how tightly woven nature is. Billy wrote a wonderful book on love. It's called Love, Teaching Letter number 27. And it says the love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. And that the individual should therefore be aware that he exists only through the love of creation, and that he carries this love within himself. and that the indescribable splendor of nature is the visible expression of the love of creation, and that creation radiates love, so that every point and every moment we can experience the radiating love of creation, and that love is the highest principle in creation. And from that principle, everything follows in absolute logic. So we should be able to look at a tree and see evidence of the love of creation, because every tiny plant and every tiny animal in creation fulfills its purpose. The laws of creation are so wonderfully arranged that people everywhere come up against its radiating love. Love will continually be the purpose of existence and all timely in its given logic. And every life form has the opportunity to live by creation's plan. The infinite love of creation connects all life, because in all life, this love lies hidden. And Billy speaks of something called wisdom-conditioned love. Wisdom-conditioned love is a harmonious state of absolute connectedness with all things, without temporal limits. He says that genuine love is a wellspring of eternal constancy, which is absolutely independent of a human being's age and personality. See, what happens over time is you develop something called Empfinden in the German, which is a fine spiritual perception. It's not built upon emotions, but through concentration and observation, you start to be able to perceive this radiating love. And Billy writes, so the knowledge and wisdom acquired this way through meditative concentration on the reality of a thing results in the experience of love. However, the ability to exercise such concentrated observation is something we earth humans rarely possess, and therefore we must develop it through hard, ongoing practice over a period of many years. So Semyase told Billy many things. She taught Billy about the universal consciousness, about creation, about the human spirit. And she had some interesting things to say about the beauty of creation. She said that whenever a human being looks at a flower or a tree or an animal and sees the beauty in the flower, the tree, or the animal, they should relate that back to the infinite beauty of creation. She also said that nature has repeating patterns. She described it as the microcosm within the macrocosm. She explained that even our ancient philosophers knew that everything is within the human. And we see the repeating patterns of nature. We see the branching pattern in the tree, the branching structure of our circulatory system. There's also a branching structure that's formed when a lightning strikes. We see the repeating pattern of the electron rotating around the nucleus of the atom, the moon rotating around the earth rotating around the sun rotating around the galaxy, the spiral of the spiral arm on the galaxy, the spiral of the seashell, the spiral in our DNA. There are repeating patterns in nature. So Semyase taught Billy about the creation, but she also warned him about non-creational thinking human beings. She said that the material intellect, with all its given limitations, tends to take the highest place here on Earth. And because of that, we have a tremendously slow development of the spirit. And she warned about this material intellect. And she said that the Earth human was too influenced by materialistic intellectual thinking. Materialistic intellectual thinking includes things, believe it or not, like pity and self-pity and egoism and pride. Whenever we see something beautiful, be it a flower or an animal or a human being or anything else, we should instantly bring that into association with the infinite beauty of creation. In the book, The Goblet of Truth, Billy talks about us living in a consciousness-conditioned tyranny. And that consciousness-conditioned tyranny creates within us a kind of a mind control, a tremendous narrow-mindedness that probably can be traced all the way back to the Giza intelligence and coming up through the Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church, and now through neo-capitalism and cynical materialism and fascism in our society. We live in a consciousness-conditioned tyranny. So what we need to do is learn to switch off the material intellect and switch off egoism, pride, envy, greed, jealousy, and so forth. And if we do that, if we shut off those things, then we have the ability to follow the creational laws again. See, our society in the third millennium here is an aberration. An aberration is something that's gone off the normal path of evolution. And we're heading towards a third global conflagration. And we've been warned about this. Let's take a small musical break and we'll be back in a few minutes. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. We're back in the second half here in Contact Report 150. Yesterday, we were talking about the incredible dangers that our astronauts face right now with our primitive space program. We have the issue of weightlessness. Weightlessness can cause a brain swelling and literally brain atrophy, several kinds of brain damage. There's also the problem of radiation in space, as well as subatomic particles that can actually come right through the spacesuits and damage the DNA of our astronauts. And one of the things we were just getting into last program was two leaders in the Middle East that Billy and Quetzal were discussing, Menachem Begin, the sixth Prime Minister of Israel, and the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was trying to get back in power in Iran. I have a clip here of the Ayatollah. It's called Ayatollah Khomeini, the Man Who Changed the World.
This man changed the world. He took Iran and made it an inspiration for a new, uncompromising strand of Islam.
Our bosses couldn't cope with the idea of an 80-year-old Ayatollah, which they didn't even know what an Ayatollah was, who lived on garlic and onions and yogurt, directing a revolution that was about to topple America's most important ally.
تمام این بحران‌ها را امریکا ایجاد می‌کند.
His Iran broke all the rules of diplomacy. It unleashed forces the West still cannot handle. It has undermined the West's hold on the Middle East.
Iran is deliberately causing maximum problems.
Iran is a threat to world peace.
I will do everything in my power to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Everything in my power.
آمریکا و انگلیس رو نگاه بکنید. هر جا دیکتاتوری و ترور و آدمکشی است، دست اونها در کاره.
This series tells the inside story of how for 30 years Iran has baffled and defeated Western leaders. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini spent 14 years banished from his native Iran. From neighboring Iraq, he waged a holy war against the Shah of Iran. In the autumn of 1978, Iraq's leader, Saddam Hussein, presented the Shah with a startling choice.
وقتی که جریان سالیانه سازمان ملل بود، وزیر خارجه عراق با وزیر خارجه ما امیر خسرو افسار صحبت کرده بود و پیامی از صدام داشت. در این پیام این بود که اگر که بخواید این رو از اینجا به خارج میفرستیم و همینطور اگر که علاقمند باشید حتی باید الیمیت بشید.
The Shah was cautious.
In those days we thought that if somebody gets rid of Khomeini, he will become like a martyr and he become even greater.
Mohammad Reza Pahlavi had ruled Iran for almost 40 years.
شاهنشاه‌ها کشور شاهنشاهی ایران به مردم این سرزمین باستانی.
He lived in a world apart from his people. He was kept in power by a vicious security service and the fifth largest army on earth, equipped with American weaponry. He ignored calls for democracy. He let the nation's vast oil wealth go only to the few. He promoted Western culture, enraging millions of Muslims. Media.
اصلا برای البته اونها میخوان حق خودشون را استیفا کنند و مسالمت هم میکنند، لکن اون شاه است که امر میکند به کشتن اونها.
So there is no alternative to fighting.
هیچ راه حلی نیست.
Khomeini's success in stoking the revolution embarrassed the French president, an ally of the Shah.
L'ayatollah Khomeini, il est venu en France dans des conditions régulières et il s'est installé comme non pas un réfugié politique dont il n'avait pas le statut, mais comme un étranger en résidence en France.
President Giscard sent the official responsible for high-profile foreign visitors to issue a warning to the Ayatollah.
Je suis donc arrivé dans ce pavillon de banlieue, dans cette chambre vraiment dénudée. Ça m'avait impressionné. J'ai fait le rapprochement avec la cellule de moine. Il n'y a pas de canapé, il n'y a rien pour s'asseoir. Lui est assis par terre en tailleur, enturbané de noir, naturellement une barbe blanche, des yeux très vifs, scrutateur. Je lui dis, voilà, ces derniers jours, vous avez prononcé des philippiques enflammés contre le chef de l'État avec lequel nous avons des relations diplomatiques normales. Et donc, il n'est pas raisonnable que sur le territoire français, vous teniez des propos de caractère politique important.
آقای خمینی هم جواب داد که من قصد فعالیت سیاسی در خاک فرانسه ندارم. من از اینجا نامه‌هایی به ایران می‌نویسم. حالا در ایران این نامه‌ها رو مردم چیکار می‌کنن اون دیگه مربوط به دولت فرانسه نیست.
In fact, Khomeini's house was a veritable production line, copying and distributing his pronouncements. In Iran, anyone carrying Khomeini's words risked arrest.
این ارامیه رو میرفتیم از یه تلفن عمومی میخوندیم برای تلفنی در شهرستان، اون ضبط میکرد، یادداشت میکرد، بعد اون تکثیر میکرد. یعنی به سرعت این اعلامیه فردای اون روز سراسر ایران رو.
I'll pick back up in this horrific story of these women being abused. Already physically developed as a woman, the child was outstretched by hands and feet and tied to a hard couch, after which 9 men assaulted her, raping her in the most brutal way. While the last of these criminal and inhuman creatures assaulted the girl, another suddenly pulled out a knife and minced the young girl's breasts, while the rapist cried out voluptuously, lustfully, bathed in squirting blood. However, this was only the prelude to an even more terrible end, because now the rest of the brutish creatures dropped onto the child. Maybe I won't even read any more of this. This is a Contact Report 150. It's very shocking. If you want to look at it for yourself, on the Future of Mankind site, it starts about line 311, and it goes on to how these horrible people working for Ayatollah Khomeini back in 1982 raped and mutilated these women. I guess these women maybe opposed the Ayatollah's reign for some reason. Anyway, this is some of the stuff that's going on in these other countries, in these other cultures. I think we're very wise to try to hold on to our own culture, if at all possible, so we don't fall into this kind of insane behavior, which I think is unfortunately part of the third millennium. Well, perhaps that's enough of the harsh reality for us tonight. I started out at the beginning of the show talking about creation, and maybe it would be kind of nice to listen to a relaxing clip about the creation, about the rainforest. This is called Beneath the Canopy. Might be a little quiet here in the beginning.
The heart of the rainforest. Here we can discover the secrets of a world 100 million years old. The forest has survived from prehistoric times, outlasting the dinosaurs. Huge trees stand like monuments amidst the symphony of life. Shrouded in a translucent veil, millions of living organisms compete for light beneath the canopy. Layer upon layer, life here exists in harmony. Trees in the rainforest have been known to live as long as 350 years and grow to nearly 200 feet tall. Throughout the forest, trees seek sunlight. Its energy allows them to process the nutrients they need to survive. A soft carpet of moss covers these ancient Arctic beech trees as they reach ever skyward in search of the light. Water, the great sustainer of life in the rainforest. These rivers and streams are the veins and arteries of the rainforest ecosystem. The rainforest canopy shields its vulnerable. Creatures see it. Every stick and leaf would compare to the size of a building or a freeway. Their day is busy with exploration and foraging for food. Follow the trails of other ants. With complex and subtle chemical communication, ants can talk perfectly to one another.
Sorry about that. I guess she didn't hear anything I said. I got to watch that. Boy, that's a bad habit to get into. I do apologize. I think I've done that more than once this evening. People that listen to this clip, hopefully they've moved forward past any dead air. I think we've had dead air several times tonight. I do apologize for that. Anyway, Billy was asked, is there a heaven? And Billy said, there is a heaven sky as we see it, not the ethereal heaven in that sense. If one talks about heaven, the human beings are usually seeing it from a religious angle. That somewhere an alleged dear God lives or angels. And this heaven does not exist. This is an illusion. This heaven is based on religion. Angels are the products of religious assumption. There are no angels in the way religions say. In ancient times, the angels were simply called messengers. But then the religions came, the faithful people called them angels. But an angel, translated into German and any other languages, means no other thing other than a messenger. And in ancient times, when certain extraterrestrials still came to the earth, they were called guardian messengers. Guardian and messenger at the same time. Guardian angels do not exist. This is also an invention by the religions and the sects. Each guardian angel that exists is the human being himself, through his thoughts, through his feelings, through his consciousness, or simply his mental block, respectively. That's why he decides, through his reason and understanding, what he shall do in a correct way. And if certain things occur, then he thinks like lightning without noticing. When he still thinks unconsciously, when he triggers feelings unconsciously and makes everything right, then he protects himself. There's no such thing as an external guardian angel, as the religions and the sects claims. It does not exist. The human being is his own guardian angel.
The night shift begins. A whole new world comes to life. Nocturnal creatures like this Perimelon and her Joey come out to feed. Other creatures begin their day of busy work under the cloak of night. In this world of darkness, animals have adapted to the absence of light. This centipede makes its way inch by inch through the forest, its legs guiding it carefully as it moves in and out of shadows.
The universal consciousness is what the Meyer material refers to as a Wesenheiten. A Wesenheiten is more like air or water. So if you want to understand the universal consciousness, if you think about all the atmosphere on the earth or the tremendous expanse of the oceans, then you might have a better understanding of the universal consciousness, what it is, because air and water are considered Wesenheiten. Now, a Wesenheiten also doesn't have a personality. So the universal consciousness doesn't really correspond to the religious idea of God. You know, the religions make these anthropomorphic analogies with God. They say that God is angry and God is vengeful and he's jealous, and then there's times when he seems to be involved in human wars to a certain degree. But the Meyer material does not describe the universal consciousness that way. In fact, it says that, and that which is worshipped as God is also idolatry, because God is just an assumed imaginative figure. In reality, there is no God. but there is only a creational universal consciousness, which is pure energy. It does not watch over the human being, and it does not direct, because each human being exercises this himself. He himself watches and directs over himself, and he, the human being, decides himself what shall be done and what he shall do, etc. Everything that happens and occurs what the human being does, it's his own decision. And from this he hears his own responsibility. We're responsible for everything we think, for everything that we do. There is no God anywhere in the whole universe in the form as it is represented by the religions and the sects. There is only a God that has been invented imaginatively as an imaginary non-figure that is worshipped in a religious sectarian way by human beings. He himself, the human being, is always responsible for whatever happens, what is happening. What the human being does, he does, and executes through his own decisions. So we are responsible. That's part of the information that the Meyer material teaches, that we're responsible, and part of our personal responsibility is learning to control our thoughts and to control our thinking. Well, sorry for the dead air. I think I had dead air a couple times tonight. I've been trying to stop the echo that sometimes comes with the clips, so I turn my mic off then. Forget to turn it back on. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you've gotten something from it. I enjoyed bringing it to you. Got a little music here, and we'll close the show out for the last few minutes with a little bit of music.